I lay next to Chris, just waiting. I didn't want to sleep. And that was the first time Chris put his hand up my dress. It was terrifying. I wanted Mom to wake up, but I was scared of Mom waking up. Like, I didn't really understand completely what was going on. I just immediately knew it wasn't right. Fine. My name's Lacie, and I'm a survivor of religious trauma, and I'm also a survivor of child abuse. My parents got divorced when I was 4, and my mom remarried when I was 7 years old. My stepdad was called Clifford Whiteley. Cliff used to be a addict. He was in and out of prison. He was very well known as this amazing man with this horrific past and very dangerous past. And then he had found God and completely turned his life around. Everyone loved him. They were obsessed with him. And this is when Cliff started to change. There was a time his daughter had a big ball. We got to stay in a hotel. I got a new dress. And before we had the party, Cliff and my mom, like, no, we'll have a nap first. We're quite tired. We always had a cuddle with Cliff. All of us. It was fine. He was considered dad in the eyes of my other siblings as well. We trusted him. So my mom was asleep. Cliff was in the middle. I lay next to Cliff, just waiting. I didn't want to sleep. And that was the first time Cliff put his hand up my dress. There was physical touching under my underwear and under my dress. Because I was obviously only 12, I didn't need to have a bra or anything on at the time. So it was bare skin there anyway, but he moved my underwear to the side. It was terrifying. I didn't know what to do. I wanted Mom to wake up, but I was scared of Mom waking up. Like, I didn't really understand completely what was going on. I just immediately knew it wasn't right. So I just lay there and didn't move. And then eventually he stopped. And we all got up, nothing was said, so I didn't say anything. And as we eventually did walk into the party, he sort of grabbed my arm and then was like, whispering, I'm sorry. That was it. That was the only time it happened outside of the family code. So I think he hadn't done anything for a bit. So I assumed, okay, maybe it was a one-time thing, and that's fine. So I went into the back room. Don't like what Mom's watching, it's boring. What are you watching? And he was lying on the sofa. I was like, well, come here and you can watch with me. So I lay down next to him, and again, he put his hand up my top and he started to touch my chest. And then there's even times I've been on a sofa with him with sort of other people in the room that I can remember, and he'd put a blanket over the both of us, and he'd be putting his hand under my underwear and up my top. So he'd be home in the day. So when I came back from school, he would be at home, my mom would be at work. He used to kiss me on my mouth and push his tongue inside my mouth and all these things he used to do, and it carried on like this for a while. The last time he did anything, I'd come back from school, I was talking to him about what I'd done, and he just leaned up and undid my school trousers and put his hands under my underwear and carried on touching me. And that was the only time, besides the apology at the start, that he'd ever spoken to me. So as he was doing it, I carried on talking about school because I didn't know what else to do, because he was responding to me in conversation at the same time as doing it, and I just didn't know what to do. Then he said, does this hurt? And I said, yeah. And then I started crying. And then he stopped and he made me sit up with him, and he's like, okay, we need to pray. We're going to pray together. He started praying to Jehovah for forgiveness because we've both done something wrong. And it was that point I was like, oh, I could never tell anybody what he's done. Like, God's really going to be upset and angry with me. And that was the last time the more sort of graphic abuse happened. But from that day until 2019 in February, he would still break my chest. And that would be more outside of clothes. It was where we would go under, but he would try, mainly over a bra, to get his hands up. And I had to fight him off of me from that point until I was 21. The way he would get away with that, because he did it often, my family or friends would come round, he would still do it then, but he had a tactic where he used to poke me and my sister in my sides and our ribs, and we'd go, oh, Cliff, like, get off. It's like irritated and want to get off. So whenever anybody was in the house and he was groping me and I was telling him to get off, they all assumed he was doing his usual. I remember when my brother found that information out, he just burst into tears because he said, I've been in the house and I've heard you tell Cliff to get off. It was easier for him with the abuse because he was my stepdad. But there's instances within the Jehovah's Witness organisation, they like to say and tell the public that children aren't allowed away from their parents or alone with anybody else within the congregation. But even when I was younger, and you would go on the ministry knocking doors, and you always had to be partnered up. And a lot of parents would go to their child, oh, they're alone, you go and work with them, go and work with that brother. And then you would. And there's been instances where people have been abused on a doorstep of somebody's house. And the reason why You're so trusting. Is that what you're taught? You call each other brother and sister. You're brought up to trust and love these people. They're your family. There's nobody outside of it that you're allowed. You only have these people. So that's when it changed for me. The more graphic abuse stopped, it just became my norm that he groped me and I had to fight him off multiple times a day. And given that he was in his late 60s, he was very tall, very big man, very strong, and he had very, very big hands. It was very difficult to get him off. As I started getting old and I was getting pressured about getting baptized, so it's like an all-day spiritual feeding. There's a pool on the stage, and that's where you get baptized, and you have to stand up and answer, do you recognize that you're dedicating your life to the Jehovah's Witness organization? And you have to answer yes in a loud voice so that everyone around you is witness to hearing you say yes. And leading up to baptism, everybody told me, especially my stepdad, you're going to be filled with Holy Spirit. It's going to feel like the best day of your life. It's going to be the best moment of your life. Nothing's ever going to compare to the feeling of when you get baptized. 2 elders will baptize you and you have to sort of, like this, and you go under. And as soon as I came back up, I felt nothing. The first thought I had after I walked out the pool and then walked out after I got changed, what have I just done? I'm 16. I don't have any of these amazing feelings of anything. That was really difficult. I never spoke out to anybody about what Cliff had done until I was 21 years old. I had been away on holiday for 2 months. I just lived my best life as I could for 2 months. It was the biggest impact because for the first time in my life, it was, oh my God, there's more than knocking doors. There's more to life than the Kingdom Hall. There's more to life than the witnesses. That can't be my life. This is what I want. And I went back with all this energy, and I told my older sister, my brother-in-law, I want to go back and I want to do this and I want to do that. I think maybe I could do this as a career. All these things were coming out, and they were like, oh yeah, great, do it. What's stopping you from doing it? And I was like, oh, well, there's Mom and then there's Cliff. And I just started to cry, and through a lot of questions from my sister and a few nods and head shakes, we got to the key that Cliff has done something to me in the past. Then she phoned my mom. I told Mom, the first thing Mom said, I believe you. I want you to know that I believe you. Mom sort of asked me a few questions to understand the extent of the abuse. And she's like, okay, I need to go and confront him. So Mom contacted 2 elders from our congregation. They went in together and they confronted Cliff. Cliff denied. So I don't know why Lacie's saying those things. I don't know where it's come from. It's not true. And that was it. The elders went. And when I woke up the next morning, I'd had a text message from Cliff saying, don't worry, Lace, Jehovah will look after us with the kids. I sort of freaked out that message. But the next morning, Mom confronted him again. And she went, I'm asking you again, did you touch my baby? And Cliff said, yes. But it was once, and I'd had too much to drink. Mom was like, I don't want you in this house. Get out and go and tell the elders what you've done. And that was that. It was sort of really annoying for me to hear that he would admit to one time and blame it on alcohol as if that's any logical reason to abuse a child. It's sick, but he saw that as almost a reasoning and as an excuse for it. The next day or the day after, my sister said, we need to go to the police. This is where I realised during this whole process, I realised my life had been a lie. I realised there wasn't love, true love within the congregation. I realised the elders that are there shepherd and protect you in the congregation do not. There's no God behind that organisation. It is a cult. How it works is very manipulative. It's very dangerous. It's very fear-mongering. It's not healthy, and it's things you don't realise when you're in it, because well, that's how it works. You're in it. It preys on vulnerable people, and that's very sad. From when we reported it to the police officer in charge of the case, he asked me and my sister, like, I need to speak to the elders. Will I have any problems dealing with them? We were like, no. Even my sister, who hadn't been a witness for many, many years, was like, you have no problem. They're not like other religions. You're going to have no obstacles. They will help and support you. And he was like, okay. So then after we first spoke to them and it came back that they were not being supportive and they were not going to help, it was, we completely got blindsided by that. It was so unexpected. We know that Clifford confessed to the elders. There'll be a written signed confession by 3 elders of what Cliff's done. So the police approached them for a statement and they refused to give a statement. And it wasn't until 7-8 months later we got the confession. We had to fight for it because they wouldn't hand it over to the police. If he survives his sentence and comes out of prison, because he's shown repentance, because he's faced earthly governments and justice by being in prison, he will be reinstated back into a congregation. But the members of that congregation won't know anything about this, and there could be children there, and he's just allowed to walk in and sit in the kingdom hall and reoffend. I don't think he felt guilty. In his confession with the elders on that document, he said he's sorry for bringing reproach on God's name, not he's sorry to me. Losing my faith has been very difficult to cope with, and the one thing I've done is talk about my experience with the witnesses, and it is mainly focused on the abuse side because of how it was handled. People will say, well, your abuse is separate to the religion, and I'm like, you need to understand what they did to me was wrong. What they do to thousands and thousands of other people is wrong. There's no justice there. They get on with their lives and they leave violence of abuse to defend for themselves with no help. The only thing they offer is spiritual guidance, which you don't want and you don't need. You need actual help. You need them to support the police in a case. You need them to protect you if that doesn't happen. It's important that people know what happens within the Jehovah's Witness organisation. One case of abuse is one too many. And this is why I speak out. My childhood was stolen because of an abuser within the organisation. You're told what to do, what to wear, who to associate with, who to marry. You're not allowed to pursue education. You can't pursue a career. If you get offered a promotion, reject it. Men are in charge of you. Women are down here. Women are only good for scrubbing the toilets at the Kingdom Hall. And that's about it. So when I left, I applied for university. I'm in my final year. Take control back of your life, of your decisions. What works for you, you need to figure out, but try it. Try everything you can that works for you. It gets better. It gets easier. It doesn't last forever. You're not alone now. Not like how the organisation will ostracize you. You won't get that here in the world. You're free. Enjoy it. Thank you so much for taking the time to listen to my story. I hope you've learned something today about the dangers of this cult. And I hope for those that are suffering like I have suffered, that you find peace. I have an Instagram account called Kingdom Trauma. My messages are still there open for you. I'm here to listen. So thank you.